I'd like to call this meeting of the Madison Board of Selectmen to order on June 5th, 2017 at 6:30 p.m. Please join me in saluting the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record show all selectmen are present. Consent agenda, warrant stated number 32, 518, 17, number 33, 518, 17. Payroll register number 21, dated 5/25/17.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second to approve the warrants and payroll registers as read. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Discuss acceptance of the meeting minutes of May 22nd, 2017.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes of May 22nd, 2017. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Old business, Mr. Moody.
None for me, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ridgely.
I'm all set.
Mr. Horton.
All set.
Mr. Duchamp.
Not to me.
Items of communication, Mr. Town Manager.
All right, in your packet, I had sent some information over, and the other things I have are fairly new. One is just some work I've been doing with Madison Electric Works regarding bonding and borrowing. One of the things that keeps coming up is whose debt is it? If Madison Electric bonds or borrows money, is it ratepayer debt or taxpayer debt? One of the helpful answers I got that got us a little bit further down this road was from Richard Rannigan, who works with bonding and has led the town through a couple of different bond processes over the last 10 or 20 years. The difference really comes down to what type of bond it is, revenue bonds or general obligation bonds. As I shared in your packet, Madison Electric has the ability to do a revenue bond right now up to $1.2 million in their charter. And that revenue bond is something that is on the ratepayers. It's based on how much revenue they can generate. The town, according to the charter, has the ability to issue a general obligation bond on MEW's behalf. And that's exactly what is in place right now with the transmission lines that go to backyard farms. That's in the last 10 years of a 20-year bond that was taken out 10 years ago. And that is not a revenue bond, that's a general obligation bond. So that one comes back to the taxpayers for their responsibility. So moving forward, as MEW's board decides what they want to do to recommend changes to their charter, they would be recommending expanding their ability to issue revenue bonds. They as a utility, they do not have the ability to issue a general obligation bond. Only a municipality that has the authority to tax can do that. So hopefully that sheds a little bit of light on it, and we'll continue to keep our communications open. Mr. Ridgely?
When they increased the borrowing ability to the 1.2 million, I forget what charter that was, I don't have it in front of me right
Yeah,
now.
that was the amendment in '95.
That didn't take a town vote.
That did, yes.
How can that take a town vote and not be, why would it, if it's just on the ratepayers?
Because it changed the charter. Any change to the charter has
Okay,
to
so
go to the citizens of Madison, because it's still a department of the town, even though they have a separate charter. That's,
Okay.
and you get back into the gray.
I see. One of these days I'll have it figured out.
All right. Any questions?
I just had a comment, but.
I want to bring the selectmen up to date on a couple of assessing issues. The owner of 25 Park Street in Madison bought the home out of foreclosure back in 2015. The purchase price was $60,000. The home was assessed for $120,000. When the homeowner applied for an abatement, the Board of Assessors denied it because the valuation of the house was still conducted fairly in comparing it with the other homes around it. And so that person has appealed the assessor's decision to deny the abatement to the county commissioners. So Shirley and I were working on some paperwork today, and this will be done at a hearing by the county commissioners this Wednesday, the 7th of June. This will be my first time going through something like this, so I'll keep you abreast of the county commissioners. I feel that their application for abatement was based solely on the market price, and it's very difficult for the assessors to lean too heavily on the market conditions, because the market conditions change. And the town has a 97% sales ratio through our last valuation. Things like foreclosure sales are not figured into the sales ratio, but it is something that I just want to make the board aware of, that we've got a hearing before the county commissioners on Wednesday. A couple other assessing things. The attorney for Madison Paper and Somerset Acquisitions, same attorney, contacted us today. This Friday is their deadline to respond to our questions in our 706 request, which we asked for specifics about who owns what property. This deadline of Friday, it was an extension from May 10th to, we gave them a 30-day extension. They have asked for another extension, and they've done the same thing over at Anson. And originally they had asked Anson for an extension of 90 days. Anson did not give them an extension of 90 days. Anson's assessor gave them an extension of 3 weeks. So Shirley talked to them today and wanted to see what the consensus of the board was to offer them an extension consistent with what Anson is offering, because we're all kind of working on the same pieces of property here. So I don't need a motion from the Board of Assessors, but I do need kind of a consensus so Shirley can get back to them.
What does that lawyer say?
Lawyer says it's good to be consistent with what they've already done over at Anson. Okay.
Anybody disagree?
No.
There's no objections on that. I passed out a list of building permits, and I wanted to just let you know a couple of things that are going on in code enforcement. Bobby Dumpy is, unfortunately, he's dealing with some reactionary health issues, reactions to some medicine and so forth that have basically kept him home today, and we'll have to kind of wait and see where he's at on Thursday. If this progresses, we'll take the steps necessary to get someone sworn in as his backup code enforcement officer. He's just been back and forth to the doctor, and he's got some skin reactionary issues to some medication. So, but I wanted the board to have those permits for the last basically year to year and a half. There's probably about 70 plus. It's in a spreadsheet. I can kind of sort it any way you'd like, but there's I sorted it by area, so it's got a listing by road and by area of the work that's being done. This is a considerable increase in the number of building permits. When you go back to 2013 and 2014, we probably were having 30 or 40 permits issued a year. Last year we issued over 60, and we're probably on pace to do over 60 to 70 this year. Could be a couple of reasons. Maybe the market is picking up, so people are building or making additions and so forth. It also could be people are more aware of the fact that they need a building permit. And we do have that ordinance change coming up at town meeting next Monday to increase the cost of working without a permit. So I want to make everybody aware of that. We've passed out a couple of copies of the Madison Division Sheriff's Office report over the last couple of days, and Sharon and I have been talking about this today. Some of the data was not accurate and not correct. One of the things that we saw was a spike in 911 calls and a spike in calls for service. Once we figured out it was a sorting issue, instead of sorting just what our Madison deputies were responding to, we sorted based on every 911 call that came into the town of Madison during the month of May, which would include medical calls and calls for fire and that sort of thing. So the real numbers were for 911 calls in May were 55 instead of 140 that pertain to the the deputies. So I think we've got that straightened out. And I didn't know if the board had any questions while Sharon's here about the police report. All right, if not, I spoke with Chris LeBlanc about recreation today, just to let the board know. The summer rec program is getting geared up for July. Kayla Bess, who graduated last year, is gonna be Chris's contact person within the town of Madison. She's gonna organize the events and programs going on for kids in Madison and Anson. It'll be the regular slate of affairs, swimming lessons, field trips, that sort of thing for the month of July. And the final thing I had was, there's some copies in the middle of the table there. Somerset Public Health is putting together some recreational trail guides. They did a similar guide for Skowhegan last year, and they've put together a guide. The big print there is actually what all goes into it. The little booklet is actually what it will look like when it comes back from the printers. And it's highlights some of the spots in Madison that people can go and hike the trails or go to the playground or do some of the activities down at the boat landing and that sort of thing. And it kind of highlights some of our areas that we've put some time and attention into over the last couple of years. And on that note, I will say that the picture in there about our volleyball courts is misleading, because the picture in that doesn't match what's actually up at the volleyball courts, which is still under a stage of experimental construction right now. So we had 6x6 posts that slid into sleeves. Those posts have swollen, and so they don't go into the sleeves anymore. So we're trying to find out a way to get the volleyball nets up and make them operational. And so Highway's aware that they're working on it. I think that's all I have.
All right, thank you. All right, new business. Number one, public hearing, proposed changes to the site review ordinance. At this point, I declare the public hearing open. I guess I gotta do that.
In your packets, and I have some handouts over there on the table, there's a 2 or 3 page summary sheet. And one of the things I'd like to do, and I'd like to introduce Chris Huck, who is here from Kennebec Valley Council of Governments, and just to thank Chris publicly for the work that he has done and the hours he's put in with our planning board. Also thank the members of the planning board for the extra meetings and the time that they put in to work their way through this site review change. What I would like to do tonight is basically use this shorter summary page as a guide. There's a couple of different tools here. There's the short summary page that was in your packets. There's the 43-page draft that has all of the changes in it. That's a little bit difficult to follow. And I did forward to you, and I printed some out tonight, there is a 26-page draft that's ready to go. Basically, I believe this is what's going to go before the voters at town meeting, and if they approve the changes, this is what we'll use to give to the folks that update our ordinance books. And so that's, and am I correct in saying, Chris, that that's pretty much done?
Almost.
Okay. What?
You're almost correct.
I'm almost correct, or is it almost done?
No, I noticed there is one change that didn't make it in there, is that right at the, and you may not want to put this up because it wasn't advertised, is we realized at the end of the process there's an identical section in the site review and the subdivision ordinance. And the planning board said, well, let's just delete the section in the subdivision ordinance and reference the new section in the site review. And I put that into the insertions and deletions version, but the version that's clean is only the site review ordinance. It doesn't include that.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I noticed that and I was gonna bring that up as well. And I think we're too late to add any change to subdivision for town meeting. So if the planning board wants to move forward with changes in subdivision, they can include this change going forward, and that would have to be brought back to town meeting or special town meeting in the future.
Yeah, the problem is just temporarily there will be different standards for parking lots depending on whether you're a subdivision or a commercial development.
That's correct, and I think that's part of an ongoing process to kind of streamline everything. So on this sheet here, the summary sheet, I'll just draw a couple of things to your attention, and if it's not an issue with the board, I just kind of go through this quickly, bullet point by bullet point. Under procedural section, the intent of the changes here is to streamline the process, clarify the steps, make it easier to understand by all users. In this regard, there's quite a bit of reorganization and editing of individual words. Entire sections and articles have disappeared, making the numbering on this version somewhat jumbled up. But that numbering has been cleared up in this final version. I'll pause between bullet points if people have things to interject. This is a public hearing, so anybody from the public or the board can interject. In section 5, a pre-application sketch plan step has been added. Chris's understanding is the board had this as an informal process. The old language was confusing as to whether it was an actual requirement, so now it's in place as a requirement. Bullet point 3, the new language specifies the planning board determines whether an application is complete. The current language is contradictory between the board and the code enforcement officer. The new language specifies a time period of 14 days between the public hearing and the board's decision. The old language said 10 days in one place and 20 in another. Section G1, a provision has been added allowing the planning board to conditionally approve an application even if the applicant doesn't have all of his state approvals or final engineering done. Those would remain as conditions of approval, meaning the town would still have control over whether those steps are indeed completed. Section 7, a section has been added for providing an expedited review of revisions to an approved project, including CEO approval of minor changes. The new language regarding appeals has been clarified that an appeals board may overturn a planning board decision, but may not formally issue the approval. That authority remains with the planning board in accordance with court decisions. And this is something that recently happened this year in 2017. The process of getting permitted for Roy's Water Park, and we'll get to parking in a second here. The issue was the number of parking spaces required. The old site plan required, I should say, the current site plan required 268 parking spaces. And therefore Chris couldn't do that, so the planning board denied his application. Chris then took it to the appeals board, which overturned the planning board's decision and settled on a number of 96 parking spaces. But even after that appeals board decision, Chris had to take his plan back to the planning board with the changes made by the appeals board, and the planning board had to pass final approval on that. All those steps were done, but that wasn't written in our process, and so now it is written in our process. Some of the application submission requirements have been changed or clarified. There may be an additional change to this section. Chris, do you know if there's any additional changes coming in the submission requirements, or are those done now?
No.
Okay. Section 11, the paragraph regarding variances has been deleted under main law. The planning board does not have the authority to grant variances. It's good to get that issue clarified because that caused a lot of confusion. On section 12, in place of the old Article 13, this section gives the Board of Selectmen authority to set application fees. This is so fees can be updated and adjusted for inflation without needing an ordinance amendment to do so. Section 43, language has been added because there was nothing in there before about what constituted a violation. And on page 14, there were some added definitions and deleted a few for terms that never appeared in the ordinance. The next part of these changes are the review standards. And the objective of these changes is twofold. One, to provide more clarity so that both developers and the town know exactly what the rules are, and to update the standards to correspond to current state laws or practices or engineering technology. So many of our standards were designed for and actually make reference to residential development, and that's not relevant to commercial development. So sections 18 and 25 have been heavily edited, and section 26 has been removed. So just to be clear, site review is for commercial development, not residential development. The section on buffer areas has been edited to be much more specific about the requirements and merged with other buffer requirements. Section 21 references outdated codes, and that's been changed to reference the Mubeck Building Code. Section 25 deletes the step for hydrogeologic assessments and adds a requirement that they be done for groundwater extraction or development over an aquifer. Section 28 was modified to reflect current practices, including requirements for loading and truck circulation, drive-up windows, emergency vehicles, fire lanes, handicap spaces. The table with the minimum number of parking spaces by use was changed to be easier to calculate and also has slightly lesser minimums. The text also tries to make allowances for development on limited space in the downtown, although acknowledging that a solution does not yet exist. I will say that the planning board spent a lot of time on parking. Since parking was an issue out at Roy's Water Park, parking is also an issue in our downtown area. If anyone wants to expand a business downtown, we can't forget about our municipal parking lots and the availability there. One of the things that came out of this is that the planning board would like to work on some sort of downtown parking plan in the future, but they've also got to work on some things in the subdivision ordinance as well. One thing I will say specifically, commercial recreation, that was the category that Roy's Water Park fell into. The old ordinance required one parking space for every 100 square feet of development. That's the calculation that got to 268 parking spaces because there was such a broad area of development there. I believe the changes have been brought down to a combination of things. One would be 30 parking spaces per acre, which is a much lower standard. One parking space per 1,000 square feet, or if it's a spectator sport or something like that, it would be based on the number of seats that are available for people to use. So I think that's helped give the board a lot more clarity and direction. I will say that the planning board expressed their frustration with the old ordinance. They were just trying to do what they could within the writing of the law, and that's what really prompted them to go through this process to change it. Section 30 has been updated and expanded to incorporate other public services, fire protection and security. Section 35 was amended to simply require an erosion control plan in accordance with best management practices. 37, a considerable portion of this text has been deleted in favor of a reference to the state's stormwater best management practices. And section 38, a considerable portion of this text has been deleted because DOT now has standards for permitting for access onto state roads. And then the final section there is what Chris referred to. Since a lot of these changes were made in site review that are also in the subdivision ordinance, but the subdivision ordinance isn't up for a change at town meeting, site review is, the planning board will just have to keep that in the back of their mind that going forward for a while, you're gonna have two ordinances that have different standards in them when it comes to parking. And they'll just have to be aware of that for any subdivision plans that will come before them until they can get that changed and brought to town meeting. So, who's ready to go through all 43 pages? Okay.
I have one question. I guess I'm looking for an explanation on why the planning board would determine if an application is complete and not the code enforcement officer.
Do you remember any discussion around that, Chris?
Well, it generally doesn't make any difference to me or, legally. But generally, planning boards like to assert their authority to say, we determine it's complete, because there are times when something is in question and the code enforcement officer doesn't think that he has the authority to make what's essentially a policy decision that the planning board might. So, and the applicant may come in and say, I want a waiver on number of parking spaces. And the code enforcement officer says, I'm not going to touch that, I'll let the planning board do that. So if the planning board has the authority to grant the waivers, then the applicant can't really get his permission from the code enforcement officer, he's gotta get it from the planning board.
What's confusing to me is normally a project does not get to the planning board until the CEO says, yeah, application is complete and is ready to go to them.
Right, he's the gatekeeper. And in 90%, 95% maybe of the cases, what he says is what the planning board's gonna go with. But there's just that 5% of the cases that there's gonna be some question that comes up that the code enforcement officer doesn't feel like he should be making that kind of decision.
So as this reads, an applicant would go to the CEO and the CEO would say, I think it's complete, but I'll schedule you before the planning board and they'll tell you if it is complete.
Yes.
That's different. That's fine with me.
Well, the old ordinance, it said in two different places. It said one place the CEO determines it's complete, and in a different place it said the planning board determines it's complete. So, like I said, it doesn't matter to me, but it should be one or the other, not both.
It was always, many years ago, I spent a number of years on the planning board, and it was always confusing, I would say that, but we always counted on the CEO not to bring us an application unless it was complete. That way there you didn't get people coming in a number of different times to get something done. Anyway, that's the only question I had.
Any other questions? Mr. Manta?
In site review and all that, it addresses stormwater. Is there anything ever in those ordinances that in the wintertime they would address snow removal instead of waiting and getting that surprise in January when they get a foot of snow and there's no place to put it?
I'm not quite sure I understand your question. You're talking about
Like
the ordinance?
But yeah, like it's getting pretty congested between the town office and the corner and down towards Irving, and nobody has any room for snow but us. And they keep crowding it over. There's a $190 fine if they push it on in the public way, but that's really not the way to address a problem.
I don't know if snow removal is
Probably isn't.
mentioned.
Well, what the change does is basically incorporate by reference the DEP's stormwater management manual. And I'm gonna bet that they have something in there about that, I can't say specifically. But they've gotta take that into consideration at some point, either in the calculations that they require or some specific practice.
Just a question.
Of course, that's only for new development, so it doesn't help when you're already in a crowded location, built up.
All right, any other questions? Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. And we'll move on.
Thank you again, Chris.
Is it signatures? People are here.
No, it's already on the town meeting warrant.
Okay.
So, oh, you referring to the public hearing?
Okay. All right, number 2, discuss paving bid recommendation.
In your packet, you should have the list of paving bids with the total price factored in the third column, and they're listed in order of low bid to high bid. As you can see, B&B Paving was the low bid, Bruce Manzers was the high bid, there were 6 others in between. We have talked about this, Glenn and I have, and there have been some concerns about the 3 lowest bidders. A combination of experience that we have had with them in the past and references that were middle of the road at best. So I, after talking with Glenn today, what Glenn and I are recommending to the board is Bard Paving for $162,051.60. Bard did the paving on Blackwell Hill and Old County Road and some town roads last year. We found them to be good to work with, and I'll leave it to Glenn if he has any more comments in that regard.
I think the only thing is, take like Hill Street and probably Purple Avenue are gonna be pretty, well, they're pretty rough to start with, so you're gonna need a crew that really knows what they're doing so that you don't go over on tonnage. And Bard came out really quite close last year, and their work was really good.
So they are kind of middle of the road, they're about 12,000 higher than the absolute lowest bid, but they're 10,000 lower than the next highest bid beyond them. So we're not recommending the low bid, but based on our experiences in the past, we are recommending Bard for 162.
Mr. Moody?
Glenn, does somebody monitor when they're laying pavement?
Yes.
Like if they're supposed to give us an inch and a half, do they give you an inch and a half, or do you get an inch out of it?
You, first thing they do is shim it to get it level.
Right.
And that's kind of a guess. You shoot for half an inch, and
Yeah.
some like this, shooting for 3/4 of an inch, and you just hope that that averages out at the end of the road, so you're not over or under. And then that gives you a little, if it is under, then you have a little flexibility to put a little more somewhere else and maybe do a little reshaping. So you don't have as much slope, but sometimes that's difficult to do. But yeah, I'm usually there with a 10-foot gun and a rule.
Okay, because they can stretch it quite a bit when they cut
But
back
you
on
have to
when
keep
long
it-
it's laid.
Yeah, but what we do is every truck, you get a weigh slip
Yeah,
and a load number,
yeah,
so you can track it pretty good.
Okay.
There's no more taking a load somewhere else and charging us for it. Those days, I believe,
so
are gone.
you know where you should be at point A to point B as far as tonnage goes,
Yeah,
and you do that via the slips,
yeah,
the load slips, okay, yeah. And you've worked with these people before, I understand?
yeah.
Just in the interest of full disclosure, I am having to find line do my driveway this year, so if anybody objects, I won't vote on it. I don't know if anybody would object, but
I don't know.
I didn't hear what he said. He mumbled.
Fine Line Paving is doing his.
I'm having
his
fun line do
driveway.
my driveway, so I wanted to disclose that in case anybody objected to me voting on this.
Why would that bother?
Because they're doing Hill Street,
They're one of the bidders.
they're one of the bidders.
It's all right, it's your driveway, you do whatever you want.
It's just a matter of
Yeah,
disclosure.
okay.
All right, so looking for a motion.
I make a motion that we award the bid to Bard Paving.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to award the bid to Bard Paving. The total price or the per?
We'll do, yes, you'll have to do the total price of
Okay, for
$162.
$162,051.60. Any questions? Mr. Duchamp?
Should the motion include subject to town meeting approval of the funds?
All right, so we have a motion to award the bid to Bard Paving for $162,051.60 pending town meeting approval.
Yep.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. All right, selectmen's concerns, Mr. Moody,
None, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Edgerly,
I had none.
Mr. Horton.
Midnight.
Mr. Duchamp.
I just have one, I review the payroll typically. One of the things that kind of a new thing is we get the slips from the ACO. And I'm just, it's pennies. I get that it's pennies, but
me like I don't know what the conditions were, because all I can see is just what's on this paper here, but we're paying, on one day in particular, we paid $42 for the ACO to deal with a stray cat. There are 400 stray cats in town. I don't understand what we're doing dealing with stray cats and why we're spending money with the ACO dealing with stray cats. I just don't understand that, so I just bring it up. You don't probably have that information off the top of your head, nor would I expect you to, but I'd like, I'd really kind of like to look at, because I mean, clearly we got, one situation that was a dog attack, a dog bite, another dog attack, 2 dogs at large, but we got stray cat, missing dogs and missing cat. I'm just, I just wonder why we're calling out the ACO for those kinds of things, particularly when we're in a time period where every penny that we spend counts.
I'll just add a couple of comments, and I could certainly talk to Robert Crosby, who's probably been our ACO for 3 months now, 4 months. ACOs fall into that category with code enforcement officers, assessing agents. They're getting harder and harder to find, and every town needs one. Our process hasn't changed. When animal complaints or concerns come in, they come in through the sheriff's department. They're logged in that way. They forward the information, in this case, to Robert Crosby. He responds. Robert's probably the best paperwork guy that I've seen in the last couple of years. So he does a good job of documenting everything. We budget $7,500 a year for animal control. And we're going to come close to capping that out this year. But the reason being is we're paying for 2 years worth of animal control this year. So when you look at those year-to-date numbers, our previous animal control officer, Dave Huff, never billed us last year in fiscal year 16. He had some health issues and he was not a crackerjack bookkeeper. So he submitted all of his mileage and all of his hours in this fiscal year. So there's a payout to Dave Huff for 16, and then what Robert Crosby's been doing in 17 in these figures. Going forward, I don't expect us to come close to exceeding that $7,500 budget figure, even if we do have to spend money for some stray cats and that sort of thing.
I understand that, I'm just thinking in terms of the dollars and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
If we're paying for this, then we ought to know what, and I get that he does a great job, but, to spend $50 on 2 stray cats on one day, I don't understand,
Can you check in on that?
I certainly will.
Well, that kind of raises a little bit of a question. With the ACO, does he have any kind of a procedure, a guideline that he uses for the amount of time that he expends on each stray cat? Where does he go with a stray cat complaint? I mean, does he go walk through the neighborhood and spend an hour, 2 hours, or what's his guidelines here?
That's exactly my question.
And if I can, so when you have a resident call in, I don't tell them, well, it's a stray cat, you need to, I take the information, and then it is given to him, the same with dispatch. They're not discriminating on what type of a complaint it is. He gets the information no matter what the complaint is. So it would be guidance from you that you wanted for him, if you wanted to tell him to let the residents know, purchase a live trap, put it out, if you do catch something, then I'll come out. It is a matter of preference on how they handle them, because if somebody's calling with a complaint, it's going to him. So nobody's filtering that and saying, well, that's a good one, or that's not a good one, so he is getting them all.
I understand that part, and there is a law if your dog is running around the neighborhood. But you can have 6 cats running all over your next door neighbor's vehicles and stuff, and there's no law against that. So, you know, how does this person
Mhm.
look at this in spending amount of time?
Oh, absolutely, and in that situation, he could have gone there, he could have picked it up, it could have been I don't know. I don't know what the situation was. It could have been an ongoing problem, she could have called the 15th time,
Yeah,
and he finally said, okay, well, it is a stray. Because again, how do you know it's a stray? Could
Because
be,
it's messing
could
with
be
your
Mrs.
garden.
Smith's cat
which
from
usually when
5
they get
streets
the
over,
attention-
and that goes to the, and then if you go retrieve your animal, it's a fee to
Yeah.
retrieve your stray, whether it be a dog or a cat.
I think we'll
So, I mean,
let the town manager talk to the animal control officer and see what his thoughts are on that.
I don't know how other towns handle stray cats. Maybe there'll be something there that we can use.
and it probably is a lot of matter of preference, and again, I would, common sense to me would be then, you know, offer live traps and then,
Al, you the one calling on those?
No, he will call.
I don't like that.
Problem's always the chairman of the board.
a lot of animal complaints do come in, just, there are quite a few for Madison.
On Bond Street.
Just in general, Madison is very active with the animal complaint, and it could, I don't know why.
I would be careful on telling people, residents, to take care of that cat themselves, because if the town or the selectmen say, it's your problem, you take care of it first, and that person gets injured, you know, where does that bring us? Let the see.
A lot of animal complaints are cut and dry. I just lost my dog, it ran, I mean, that's pretty cut and dry. Stray cats, like you said, how do you know it's really a stray? It could just be somebody's outdoor cat that likes to roam around, but they still are owned.
If it's a black Maine Coon cat, it's probably mine wandering the neighborhood, so it's okay.
A lot of cats,
Green
doesn't
eyes.
mean that they're strays.
Any citizens' concerns?
Yes, Tim and I had a discussion, on last Monday, about my abatement request, which was similar to, 60 Park Street or whatever. And I was told, the letter I received said to file an appeal with the appeals board, which I did 2 weeks ago, roughly. And so it was within the 60-day deadline. I've been told, but haven't been given any information, and it's kind of gone past the 60 days now, but I did file it correctly within the 60 days as directed. I made an offer. I was requesting 25,000, bring it down to 25,000 from 39, I think it is, because that's what I paid for the property. And so the thing is I offered to settle it at 35,000 and be done with it, set the value at 35, whatever abatement that is, that would cost the town less than $100 versus close to 300. And we could be done with it, or what I need from you is how to get it to the county commissioners, which is where I should have filed it, but I filed it wrong because I was directed wrong. You get what I need? I need to know who to file it with, the address or whatever, to file that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Charlie, I remember our conversation, the way I thought we left it is I was gonna talk to
Yeah,
Shirley, the assessing
yeah.
agent.
Did you do that?
And we did, Shirley and I
Oh.
talked today, and she's gonna go back and call you and make an appointment to look at your property and go back and see if it is doable to adjust it from 38 to 35.
She already looked at it last year.
But she and I talked about it,
Okay.
and
Okay.
to keep the process consistent, she'd rather talk to you, go through the
Okay.
property again.
All right,
And
that's
relook
it,
at
I
it.
wanna know what's happened, I haven't heard
Yeah,
from you,
and
we're
I
going
apologize.
past the deadline, I kinda wanna know what goes on,
And I apologize, I didn't get back to you on that today, but Shirley and I did talk about that.
okay.
And because your application did come in Either one,
Yeah,
either the commissioners or the appeals board, will honor either one,
okay,
as far as
Okay.
you've met the deadline.
okay.
So I can,
All right, yeah, I was just getting concerned about that, and,
yeah.
you know, I thought it might come up tonight or something. And then when you didn't mention it, but, what is it,
Yeah,
60
I did,
parts?
yeah.
When is that hearing?
That's at county commissioners to Wednesday at 3:00.
3 o'clock?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go to that, see what goes on,
It is open to the public.
yeah,
All right, thank you.
so.
All right, any other
Yeah,
public?
one more thing, I noticed out here with the work being done, where you took out the playground, well, you're aware that that fence is actually, I measured it the other day, because there's a property marker there, the fence is actually 9 feet into, I believe, the right-of-way, I think it's a 4-rod right-of-way. I measured to the center of the road, came to like 32.8, 33 feet would be 2 rods. So it's a 4-rod right, it sounds like a 4-rod right-of-way, which would be 66 feet. Your fence is actually 9 feet out, so if you put the new playground in, make sure you set it back far enough, not that at some point, you know, it's one thing if at some point you have to move the fence,
Right.
okay? It's another thing if you have to move a whole playground, just concern, you know.
Are you referring to the right-of-way on Locust Street?
Yeah, on Locust Street, yeah, where, I'm not sure, I'm turned around inside the building
Yep.
here.
Right over there, okay.
Okay, right over there, yeah, I see, yeah, there is a property marker, a iron rod in the ground there. It's about 3 inches on my side of the fence and 9 feet from the end of the fence,
Okay. Thank you.
just let you know, because I noticed they're doing a whole bunch of grading and all.
Yeah.
And have you gotten in with the Madison Electric, are they gonna come in and do something here, we can talk about that?
They're reluctant to cut any trees that aren't near power lines,
Okay,
so we'll have to revisit that.
okay, we'll have to get together and talk about that, yeah, all right.
We will.
Because I'd like to do whatever before, before you put anything up.
Exactly. The
Thank you.
timeframe on that playground is probably late July, early August.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. Any other citizens' concerns? Seeing none, I'll looking for motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries, the meeting is adjourned at 7:17.